The Panzerkampfwagen 8 Maus was a German World War II super heavy tank completed in late 1944. It is the heaviest fully enclosed armoured fighting vehicle ever built. 5 were ordered, but only 2 hulls and 1 turret were completed before the testing grounds were captured by advancing Soviet forces. These 2 prototypes, one with and the other without a turret, underwent trials in late 1944. The complete vehicle was 10.2 metres long, 3.17 metres wide and 3.63 metres high. Weighing at 188 metric tons, the Maus's main armament was the Krupp-designed 128mm KWK-44 L55 gun, based on the 12.8cm PaK-44 anti-tank field artillery piece, also used in the casemate type Jagdtiger tank destroyer, with a coaxial 75mm KWK-44 L36.5 gun. The 128mm gun was powerful enough to destroy all Allied armoured fighting vehicles then in service, some at ranges exceeding 3,500 metres. The principal problem in the design of the Maus was developing an engine and drivetrain which was powerful enough to propel the tank, yet small enough to fit inside it, as it was meant to use the same sort of hybrid drive, using an internal combustion engine to operate an electrical generator to power its tracks with electric motor units, much as its Ferdinand Porsche designed predecessors, the VK3001P, the VK4501P, and Elephant had. The drivetrain was electrical, designed to provide a maximum speed of 20 km per hour and a minimum speed of 1.5 km per hour. However, during actual field testing, the maximum speed achieved on hard surfaces was 13 km per hour with full motor field, and by weakening the motor field to a minimum, a top speed of 22 km per hour was achieved. The vehicle weight made it unable to utilize most bridges. Instead, it was intended to ford a depth of 2 meters, or submerge it up to a depth of 8 meters and use a snorkel to cross rivers. The Maus was intended to punch holes through enemy defenses in the manner of an immense breakthrough tank, whilst taking almost no damage to any components. The basic design, known as the VK 100.01 Porsche Type 205, was suggested by Ferdinand Porsche to Adolf Hitler in June 1942, who subsequently approved it. Work on the design began in earnest. The first prototype, to be ready in 1943, was initially to receive the name Mammut, meaning mammoth. This was reportedly changed to Mäuschen, meaning little mouse, in December 1942, and finally to Maus, meaning mouse, in February 1943, which became the most common name for this tank. The Maus was designed from start to use the electric transmission design which Ferdinand Porsche had used in the VK4501P, his unsuccessful attempt to win the production contract for the Tiger. The initial power plant was the Daimler-Benz MB509 gasoline engine, an adaptation of Germany's largest displacement inverted V12 aircraft engine, the Daimler-Benz DB603, and later changed to the Daimler-Benz MB517 diesel engine. This drove an electrical generator, and their combined length occupied the central rear 2/3 of the Maus's hull, cutting off the forward driver's compartment in the hull from direct access to the turret from within the tank. Each 1.1 meter wide track, which used the same basic contact shoe and connector link design format as Henschel built Tiger II, was driven by its own electric motor, mounted within the upper rear of each hull side. Each set of tracks had a suspension design containing a total of 24 road wheels per side, in 6 bogie sets, staggered to be spread over the entire width of the track. Due to the return run of the uniquely wide tracks used being completely enclosed within the fixed outer side armor panels that defined its overall hull width, with the inner vertical lengthwise walls of the hulls used to mount the suspension components, a narrow lengthwise tub remained between the hull's inner armoured walls under and to the rear of the turret to house the engine and generator of the tank's powertrain. The armour was substantial. The hull front was 220mm thick. The sides and rear of the hull were up to 190mm thick. The turret armour was even thicker. The turret front was up to 240mm thick, and the sides and rear 200mm. The gun mantlet was 250mm thick, and combined with the turret armor behind, the protection level at that section was even higher. The initial plan for the Maus was for the prototype to have been completed by mid-1943, with work on the Maus being divided between Krupp, responsible for the chassis, armament and turret, and Alket, who would be responsible for final assembly. The Maus tank was originally designed to weigh approximately 100 tons and be armed with a 128mm main gun and 75mm coaxial secondary gun. Additional armament options were studied, including various versions of 128mm, 150mm, and 170mm guns. In January 1943, Hitler himself insisted that the armament be a 128mm main gun with a coaxial 75mm gun. The 128mm Pak-44 anti-tank field artillery piece of 1943 that Krupp adapted for arming the Maus as the Kampfwagen Cannon 44 retained, in parallel to the Porsche project, its original anti-tank Panzer Cannon family designation of Pak-44 when mounted in the casemate-style Jagdtiger tank destroyer. By May 1943, a wooden mock-up of the final Maus configuration was ready and presented to Hitler, who approved it for mass production, ordering a first series of 150. At this point, the estimated weight of the Maus was 188 tons. However, there is a story that concerns the main armament of the Maus being changed by Hitler, who said that the 128mm gun looked like a toy gun when compared to the tank, causing the 128mm gun to be replaced by a 150mm gun. In his book, Panzerleader, Heinz Guderian wrote, "On 1st of May, a wooden model of the Maus, a tank project of Porsche and Krupp, was shown to Hitler. It was intended to mount a 150mm gun. The total weight of the tank was supposed to reach 175 tons. It should be considered that after the design changes on Hitler's instructions, the tank will weigh 200 tons. The model didn't even have a single machine gun for close combat, and for this reason I had to reject it. It had the same design flaw that made the Elephant unsuitable for close combat. In the end, the tank will inevitably have to wage a close combat since it operates in cooperation with the infantry." An intense debate started, and except for me, all of the present found the Maus magnificent. It was promising to be exactly that, a giant. This lack of close combat armament was later addressed with the addition of a machine gun mounted in the turret roof, a 7.92mm MG-34 machine gun with 1,000 rounds mounted coaxially with the main weapon in the turret and 3 pistol ports for submachine guns in the sides and rear of the turret. Future planned modifications include provisions for an MG-151-20 cannon for anti-aircraft defense mounted in the turret roof. The first turretless prototype, version 1, was assembled by Alket in December 1943. Tests started the same month with a mock-up turret fitted of the same weight as the real turret. In 1944, the production turret with armament was used for tests. The Maus was too heavy to cross bridges. As a result, an alternative system was developed, where the Maus would instead ford the rivers it needed to cross. Due to its size, it could ford relatively deep streams, but for deeper ones, it was to submerge and drive across the river bottom. The solution required tanks to be paired up. One Maus would supply electrical power to a crossing vehicle via a cable until it reached the other side. The crew would then receive air through a large snorkel, which was long enough for the tank to go 7.9 meters underwater. In March 1944, the second prototype, the version 2, was delivered. It differed in many details from the version 1 prototype. In mid-1944, the version 2 prototype was fitted with a power plant and the first produced Maus turret. This turret was fitted with a 128mm KWK-44 L55 gun, a coaxial 75mm KWK-44 L36.5 gun, and a coaxial 7.92mm machine gun 34. The V1 prototype was supposed to be fitted with the second produced turret, but this never happened. By July 1944, Krupp was in the process of producing 4 more Mausiles, but they were ordered to halt production and scrap these. Krupp stopped all work on it in August 1944. Meanwhile, the version 2 prototype started tests in September 1944. Fitted with a Daimler-Benz MB517 diesel engine, new electric steering system, and a Skoda Works designed running gears and track. There was also a special railroad carriage mode for transporting the Maus prototypes. The working Maus prototypes remained in Kummersdorf after being tested at Boblingen. Maus 2 was ordered to Wunsdorf to protect the OKH. Probably version 1 was ordered there too, as support for the V2 if it drove into mud, or to help it with driving through rivers, where it would have served as a generator unit for version 2. Version 2 ended at the Hindenburgplatz, in front of the bunker Maybach 1, where it was destroyed by placing charges in the engine and fighting compartments. Because it had ammunition stowed under the turret, it was damaged more extensively than the version 1, with the turret being more or less intact. Mouse version 1 did not reach this area. After the war, the Soviet commander of armoured and mechanized troops ordered the hull of the V1 to be mated with the turret of the V2. The Soviets used 6 German FAMO-built 18T German half-tracks, the largest half-track vehicles that Germany built in the war years, to pull the 55-ton turret off the destroyed hull. The combined V1 hull and V2 turret vehicle was completed in Germany and sent back to the USSR for further testing. It arrived there on May the 4th, 1946. When further testing was completed, the vehicle was taken over by the Kubinka Tank Museum for storage, where it is now on display. Thanks guys so very much for watching. If you did like this video, leave it a thumbs up. If you didn't, dislike it, but at least tell me why in the comments, and subscribe for more similar content.